Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome back to another Season 7 League of Legends Champion Guide. Today, I'm going to be covering Jungle Cho'Gath, the Terror of the Void.
Nom, 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 nom.
So let's hop right into the guide by looking at Cho'Gath's pros and cons. So first, Cho'Gath has a very fast jungle clear because he has 3 different abilities that do AoE damage. Jungle camps do not stand a chance. Cho'Gath even has some really nice built-in sustain from his kit as well. Because of his passive, whenever he kills minions or monsters, he gains health and mana, so obviously this keeps him sustained during the jungle. Cho'Gath is a champion that also has some pretty high burst damage in the early and the mid game. Now, we're not really going to get any ability power in our build, but a lot of our damage is based off of health, and of course we have true damage in our ultimate, so we do a pretty significant amount of damage. Then of course there's Cho'Gath's ultimate, which gives him infinite scaling and makes him naturally tanky. This gives him max health based on his feast stacks, and this makes Cho'Gath the highest health champion in the game. Now, Cho'Gath, however, has some pretty limited mobility. He is a champion with pretty decent crowd control, but he doesn't have a way to actually get on top of an enemy champion. His Q must be landed. Another downside, however, is the Q ability is somewhat hard to land, especially against very mobile champions. Finally, Cho'Gath is also getting nerfed in patch 7.15. He's honestly a really overpowered champion right now, however, and he does need some nerfs. They'll be reducing the damage on his E ability, which of course will suck, but it will not make or break Cho'Gath. He's still going to be a fantastic champion, especially if you need one of those really tanky frontliners in your team comp. For your Masteries, you have 2 different options, and the first one is going 18 Cunning and 12 Ferocity, grabbing Thunderlord's Decree as your Keystone Mastery. If you're looking for a little bit of added burst damage into your combos, then this is definitely the one you'll want to pick up. For the rest of your Masteries, pretty much just focus on increasing your damage as much as possible. The other option you have is going 18 Resolve and 12 Ferocity, grabbing Bond of Stone as your Keystone Mastery. Your E ability will proc your Bond of Stone over and over again, and your allies are going to be able to get a lot of healing off of it. For the rest of your Masteries, focus on increasing your sustain and tankiness as much as possible on the Resolve side, while getting some damage in the Ferocity side. If you're looking to add a little bit of team utility, then go for Bond of Stone. The rune page is a little bit complicated, but you want to go for attack speed reds, scaling health yellows, a mix of cooldown reduction and scaling cooldown reduction blues, 2 armor quints, and 1 attack speed quint. So first, the reason you want to go for all the attack speed is to clear the jungle just a little bit quicker, and of course it will proc your E a lot faster. Now, since a lot of your stuff scales off of your health, you want to go for the scaling health yellows instead of the armor. To make sure you don't take an absolute ton of damage in the jungle, however, you want to pick up those armor quints. Now, Cho'Gath also usually doesn't get cooldown reduction capped from his items, so you want to get 10% CDR from the scaling CDR and the normal CDR. If you don't have this specific rune setup, it's okay, just make sure you take some attack speed and you have a bunch of armor. For your summoner spells, you'll always want to take Smite and Flash. Smite is required since Cho'Gath will be able to use it to clear through the jungle, secure objectives like Dragon and Baron, and buy his jungler item. The offensive Smite from your Stalker's Blade can also make landing your Rupture much easier because it of course will slow the enemy. Skirmisher Saber on the other hand will add some nice extra true damage. Both regardless will make your ganks much more effective. Now, Flash is also required because Cho'Gath is a fairly immobile champion. This can be used to save your life multiple times throughout the game, or offensively to stun somebody far away with your Rupture, or to execute somebody with your Feast. Now let's kick off your abilities by looking at your passive Carnivore, which adds some really nice sustain and keeps you healthy in the jungle. Whenever Cho'Gath kills an enemy or destroys an enemy structure, he restores between 20 and 71 based on level health, and 3.5 to 7.75 based on level mana. So, there's not too much to say about this ability, but it is great because while you are clearing through the jungle, every time you kill a creep, you are getting a bunch of health and mana back. This is going to keep you sustained through even those hard jungle camps like raptors and golems. This also allows Cho to take a bunch of different jungle paths, so Cho is a little bit unpredictable. Your Q ability is Rupture, and this does some pretty significant damage and also crowd controls the enemies that are hit in the area. When activated, Cho'Gath causes the target area to rupture after 0.625 second delay, knocking up enemies hit for 1 second, slowing them by 60% for 1.5 seconds afterwards, and dealing magic damage. So this here is a pretty solid ability because it has the chance to knock up multiple targets with that 175 radius that the ability has. Now it is however a pretty unreliable stun because it does have a 0.625 second delay, which allows mobile champions to easily escape out of the area. Therefore, you'll want to try to bait out their mobility spells beforehand and then knock them up with this ability. If this lands, it also slows them for a second and a half so you can follow up with the rest of your kit and easily burst down a target. To make this a more reliable stun, use a slow from Righteous Glory or your blue smite so they are slowed and then land the ability afterwards. Your W ability is Feral Scream, and this is your AoE damaging ability that also silences the enemy's hit. When activated, Cho'Gath roars in the target direction, dealing magic damage to enemies in a cone and silencing them for the duration. So this is a really strong ability because it has a decent AP ratio and an AoE silence, which can be devastating in a team fight. If I'm against enemies that have strong ultimates that are channeled like a Katarina, then I'll usually hold on to this ability so I can cancel it instantly, and their damage will be limited. It's also of course great in the jungle because when you combine it with your Q and your E ability, you have 3 different AoEs, and jungle camps are going to die pretty quickly. Sweep this through as many targets as possible in a team fight, but make sure you keep it if there is a strong channeled ultimate. Your E ability is Vorpal Spikes, and this is your bread and butter ability that does AoE damage based on your feast stacks and the target's maximum health. When activated, Cho'Gath's next 3 basic attacks within 6 seconds have 50 bonus range and launch a volley of spikes in a line, dealing magic damage and applying a decaying slow over the next 1.5 seconds to enemies hit. Vorpal Spikes will also reset Cho'Gath's auto attack timer. Now this magic damage is only 30% AP, but it's also based off of 4% of the target's maximum health and 0.5% per feast stack. This means it scales excellently into the late game and can do a lot of damage even to tanky targets. This of course also applies a slow over and over again, so it works great with Bond of Stone. Since it does also reset your auto attack timer, you want to make sure you follow it right after an auto attack to maximize your damage. Also, this is definitely your ability with the most damage, so make sure you max it first. Your ultimate is Feast, and this is your true damage nuking ability that also gains you stacks and of course increased health. When activated, Cho'Gath attempts to eat the target enemy, dealing true damage. Against non-champions, the base damage is increased to 1000. If Feast kills its target, Cho'Gath gains 1 Feast stack. Feast can stack indefinitely, but only 6 stacks can be gained from non-epic monsters or minions. Each stack grants bonus health as well as attack range and increased size that stacks 10 times. So this ability is fantastic because it gives you stacking health, and the damage is based off of your bonus health and ability power. Now to gain stacks, you have to be very careful because this ability must finish off your opponent. This of course is really easy up to 6 because you can use it on monsters and minions, but past level 6 you have to calculate it very carefully. Just save it for the very end of your combo, and when you're confident that this will finish off the target, use it. As you gain health from your items, this will do a monstrous amount of damage, so it's not going to be that hard to pull off. Also worth noting, dragons and barons will give you a stack beyond level 6, so make sure you take those. For your masteries, you first want to put a point into your ultimate whenever you can at 6, 11, and 16. You'll then want to focus on maxing your E ability because it does some really reliable AoE damage that's based off of your max health and your feast stacks. Then you want to focus on maxing your W ability second because it has a scaling silence duration. The damage is not as high as your Q ability, but it is more reliable damage, and of course you've got that scaling silence. So that obviously means you want to save your Q ability for last. It of course is a really solid ability still, so make sure you take a point in it at level 2 so you do have that AoE stun and slow. Otherwise, save it for last. Cho'Gath is pretty strong at clearing through the jungle and therefore has a couple viable routes. So the first one is the standard clear, where you kill your first buff with a leash from your bot lane and then kill wolves, raptors, and your second buff. This one's my favorite clear because your level 3 ganks are actually pretty decent as long as you can land your Q ability. If you instead wanted to rush level 6, then you can go for a raptor start. Kill your raptors and then do Krugs, Wolves, Gromp, and Scuttle, then back and do a full clear. This will give you level 6 the quickest with double buffs. You also have an option of doing the level 3 rush and gank where you do both buffs and your wolves, but Cho'Gath's clear is so strong that you may as well do the standard clear and not rush level 3 just a little bit quicker. When ganking on Cho'Gath, you'll first need to open up with your Rupture until you have a Righteous Glory. Now you do also have the option of using your blue smite to slow the enemy so it's easier to land, and if you can actually get right on top of the enemy, you could use your E ability first and then go for the stun. Either way, once you land your Rupture to pop up the enemy, make sure you silence them right away with your Feral Scream so they cannot jump away from you. Then all you have to do is auto them down with a few Vorpal Strikes until the enemies are low enough to execute with your Feast. Make sure you'll deal enough damage because it must finish off the enemy to grant a stack of Feast. Once you have your Righteous Glory, you can activate it to get near the enemy. This will emit a shockwave which will slow your target and of course make Rupture a lot easier to land. When teamfighting, you'll usually be a tanky frontliner and initiator. Use your Righteous Glory at the beginning to get yourself into position to fight. Use the slow that it provides to get your team on top of the enemy and pop up the carries if possible with your Rupture. You want to spend the majority of your time on the front line dealing damage with your Vorpal Strikes. This does percent max health damage, so it will do a lot of damage to those tanky frontliners. Against those champions with channeled ultimates like Katarina, make sure you save your Feral Scream to cancel their ultimate. Other than that, just look to finish off a target with your ultimate whenever it's possible. Now let's look at a couple of your hard matchups, and let's start off with Ivern. Ivern's a pretty annoying counter jungling champion, and that's exactly what he's going to try to do against you. Even if you catch him, he can use his root collar to easily escape, and he's going to keep his allies saved over and over again with his shields. These shields can be very, very clutch, and they can stop you from deleting people with your ultimate, which is going to also reduce your stack count. Try to keep track of where he is on the map and avoid him as much as possible. Another hard matchup is Maokai, and he's one of the best junglers at the moment. He does a lot of damage and has some pretty decent sustain, which is great against you, and his ultimate can also stop your initiation with your Righteous Glory. He's definitely got much stronger ganks than you early on because of his point and click stun, so try to spend time counter ganking him. Yet again, try to keep track of where he is on the map, and if you need to, follow him around. Another hard matchup that can abuse your low mobility would be Nocturne. His ultimate's got a really long range, which will allow him to get off his ganks over and over again and counter gank you whenever he needs to. With really clutch spell shields, he can even stop your feast damage. This is something that can be pretty hard to pull off, but if he does it, he's going to really shut down your damage. He's then going to turn onto you with his increased attack speed and destroy you. In the late game, you're definitely going to be unkillable for him, so just try to make it to the late game where you can destroy him 1v1. And for the last hard matchup here, I've got another invader, Nunu. He's going to try to spend a lot of time counter ganking you, which can be pretty frustrating, so try to keep your jungle warded as much as possible. He's also got a little bit better mobility than you because of his blood boil, so his ganks are going to be a little bit quicker, and they're pretty damn effective. Try to counter gank him as much as you can, and make sure you use your Feral Scream to stop his ultimate. Alright, now let's finish off this guide with our item build, which starts with a Hunter's Talisman, Refillable Potion, and a Warding Totem. For your core build, you want to get a Stalker's Blade enchanted with Cinderhulk, a Righteous Glory, and a Warmog's Armor. You're going to have a nice burn for clearing through the jungle with your Cinderhulk, some really solid engage from the Righteous Glory, and an absolute ton of health. Even though you don't really have any damage built onto this core build, you're still going to do a lot with your Feast because of the plus 10% bonus health damage. This of course is true damage, and you're going to destroy a lot of squishy targets. For your boot options, you have Merc Treads against high AP and CC heavy teams, Ninja Tabbies against AD teams, Ionian Boots for 10% CDR, and Boots of Swiftness for all-around mobility. Now for the item build, first we have an item that is pretty much core, the Gargoyle Stoneplate. When activated, because of all your health, you're basically going to be unkillable for that duration. With that 100% health gain, your ultimate's damage is also going to go through the roof because it's based off of your bonus health. The Gargoyle Stoneplate does reduce damage, but not true damage, so your ultimate is unaffected. I've had it where all I've had to do was activate my Gargoyle Stoneplate, go up to a squishy champion, press R, and collect a kill. For our next items, we have a couple armor options in the Thornmail and the Deadman's Plate. Now, I'm a really big fan of taking a Thornmail on Cho'Gath because your health pool is so large and people are going to do a massive amount of damage to themselves. Deadman's Plate is still a pretty good alternative though because you're not the most mobile champion out there, and this will give you a little bit of movement speed, which is pretty nice on Cho'Gath. Next we have a couple magic resist items in the Spirit Visage, Abyssal Mask, and Adaptive Helm. All three of these are pretty damn good options, and it's pretty much personal preference, but I do like the Abyssal Mask the most since it does increase your damage. The Adaptive Helm, though, is a fantastic item against champions that spam the same ability over and over again, like a Rise or a Cassiopeia. Now for the last item, we have the Titanic Hydra. This is an item I'd take more so on a top lane Cho'Gath, but it's still pretty decent if you do need to split push in this game. You already have a ton of AoE damage, but this will give you even more, and you can split push really quickly. For my normal full build though, I take the core build and then add a Gargoyle Stoneplate and a Thornmail. If you're against a bunch of AP champions, then take one of the magic resist items over the Thornmail. This full build though will pretty much make you an unkillable tank that can actually initiate rather quickly with a Righteous Glory, and you're still going to do a massive amount of damage because of your ultimate. In really bad situations, you can activate your Gargoyle Stoneplate so you're basically unkillable, or you can just activate it if you do need to nuke somebody in one shot with your ultimate. And that's all I've got for Jungle Cho. Don't forget to check out the video description below for a link to all of my social medias. I do also have a Discord server, so if you do need any additional help or you just want to hang out, then please feel free to join. We have a lot of people in there, and a lot of them love to help anybody who needs it. I also have a second Let's Play channel, so if you enjoy Let's Plays, please also check out my second channel. But other than that, thank you guys so much for checking out the video. I really do appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take it easy, and peace.
Going